All right, whenever you're ready.
So I'm Jakob. I did racing sports. Next slide. So this is kind of a big slide for me just because I'm a baseball player and all and big fan of it. Baseball and the race have changed throughout the years, but especially when Jackie Robinson was signed in 1947 to the Brooklyn Dodgers by Branch Rickey. He was kind of the first African-American in Major League Baseball. And that kind of gatewayed a lot of different ethnicities coming into baseball. When I went to a school, my presenter today, it was his school, him and his dad, and it's called the Jerry Manuel Foundation. It was an all African-American school, and I was the first white kid there. And it was very humbling for me to kind of see the experience and learn the different things. They taught a lot about Jackie Robinson and what he stood for and what the change of culture in baseball was going to be, and the different things that happened throughout the years with baseball, just kind of getting the different ethnicities and making sure that they're taken care of. They're in the sport, they're not only as a player, but as a person. And it's kind of let's get somebody off the streets and let's bring them into this school. Let's take care of them and let's make sure that their life goes for the better. But being at that school, they kind of stood for two things, and one was obviously having the baseball background for African Americans to go up in the major leagues. They gave us a brochure my first day, and it was the percentages of all different ethnicities besides white in the major leagues, and every single percentage was below 5%. Now going through the years, Major League Baseball started out at 93.8% white in the first 30 to 40 years that it was created. And after Jackie Robinson broke the barrier, the races started to change, the percentages started to change, and throughout the years coming into the 2000s and 2016, the percentages started to go up a little bit more. Not as much and not as fast, but they were there. The increases of them were there. In the 80s, the African American percentage was up to 22, I want to say. And with that percentage going up, it kind of decreased throughout the years, and that's when you see other ethnicities start to come into the game. Like now the game's more Hispanic / Latino dominant. The Asian culture is starting to come into American baseball, and they're also getting Europeans, they're getting just people from all over the world are starting to come into what was once a white predominant sport. It's moved into everything else, and they're going out of, Major League Baseball is going out of their way to make sure that they know to support each race that comes into this sport. And at the start, when the African Americans, the whites, the Asians, and the Hispanics and Latinos started all playing together, the wage gap was pretty low for all the other ethnicities. There was about a $2,000 difference in between pay grades and all that different stuff. But now it's getting to a point where it's more equal. A lot of people are signing for different numbers. Shohei Ohtani, for example, is getting ready to sign probably the biggest check in Major League Baseball of $789 million.
What's their position?
He's a pitcher and a hitter.
Okay.
But he's currently the greatest baseball player alive. He will change the revenue for money in Major League Baseball. Just the value of him and everything, and he's from Japan. Mm-hmm. Major League Baseball paid a pretty penny to get him over here, and they want to keep it that way. They don't want him to go back. Next slide. The race throughout all the different sports. In the beginning of sports times, it's in the United States, it was boxing, basketball, football, soccer throughout the world, but lastly golf and baseball. The races really started out as white, but as Jackie Robinson kind of came in, all different sports started to adapt the different ethnicities in their game, especially being Football in the 1930s started earlier, but in 1933 they put a ban to African Americans and Latinos into their sport, and they wanted to make it a white sport only. But now at the rates that it is, NFL football is at 44% African American and 33% white. With golf, there's 72% men and 28% females. 72.8 is white, but the remainder is African American, Hispanic, and Asian, as long as unknown, the European. With my favorite players on the tour, Rory McIlroy, he's European, Tiger Woods, he's African American, and Colin Morikawa, he's Japanese. A lot of these players come from different backgrounds, they come from different countries, but I mean, I have in parentheses here the Ryder Cup. Colin Morikawa is a Japanese golfer, but he played for Team USA in the Ryder Cup because he's a United States citizen. And it's kind of cool to see that the USA took him in and said, oh, no, you're a part of us, you're not a color, you're not a different human, you're the same. A lot of the different things that these guys are starting to stand for in the platform of sports has definitely changed since 2020, but it's also changed for the better. I know a lot of professional sports are doing the end to racism. They'll have it on their fields, they'll have it on their courts, they'll have it on their jerseys. I know NFL or NBA does it every year where they get a game now. They have a game where they can put whatever they want on the back of their jersey, basically what they stand for and all that kind of stuff to help out with what the human eye needs to see in the world. Next slide. Throughout the years, after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947, many of the American sports adapted to it, and people like Earl Lloyd in the 1950s joined the NBA. Like I said, the NFL put a ban to the color barrier in the 1930s, but the color barrier was also broken in them. With Marlon Bisco, another guy in the NBA, Bill Russell, Jackie, I don't know why I have him twice on the slide, shouldn't be there, but Satchel Paige, I'll use that name for example, and Muhammad Ali. Many cultural backgrounds did come within this. Muhammad Ali, for example, his original name was the Clashes of Clay. Like he's an African American man with now a Muslim background because he didn't want to go to the war, and a lot of politics came into place with that, but he chose that. He chose to change who he was and what he stood for. And it kind of changed the way that a lot of people did stuff in the 50s, the 60s, and throughout the years. It was not a time and not a place for them. But at the same time, we've adapted to it. And we've changed the way that we do things and the way that things have been done in the past for them to come over and play our sports from out of the country, from being an African American, being a Hispanic Latino, like American born. We've changed them having the obligation to play our sports. I mean, I think it's for the better. I think it's definitely helped. It's helped the market revenue, ticket sales, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it just depends on who the person is. If they have a bad background, then obviously some people won't stand for them, but if they have a good background, then people will support. A guy like Mookie Betts plays for the Los Angeles Dodgers now. He's played for the Red Sox. He's very big into the racial and politic background, but he doesn't show it on his professional level. He shows it on his podcast, but that's a different time, a different place, that's off the field. And I mean, he wants nothing but the best for every person that wears a jersey. He doesn't care about a color of his skin. He doesn't care about the height, the weight. He wants to play the game of baseball. And I'm sure that goes for many different athletes like Bill Russell or like Tom Brady or Cam Newton. Like it's a very big cultural world, and a lot of people will stand for that, especially the commissioners. I know Adam Silver for the NBA, he wants to support everything that those players stand for. He wants the best for them, and he doesn't want them to feel frightened. He doesn't want them to feel like they have a threat towards them and behind their back. And if a player gets a death threat, a death note, or something delivered to their house, that team will go out of their way to make sure that that's not what they stand for and that's not acceptable. And many more things. With Jackie, again, I'm going to keep going back to him because he's one of the biggest impacts of my life as a role model. There's a statue of him and a player, Pee Wee Reese, in Dodgertown, Florida, and it's basically a statue of them kind of holding arms together at a game. And I mean, Pee Wee Reese is from Cincinnati, Ohio. Jackie's from Los Angeles, and once that happened, the amount of death threats that kind of went to Pee Wee Reese, saying we don't support that, we don't stand for that, why would you ever, like, you're the worst human being ever now, like, no. He said it in the movie 42. He said, that's not what I stand for. I want to play the game. I stand for the game. There's no change in anything but the game. Don't try to change the way of a person's life. Lastly, racing the colleges. In the beginning of our kind of civilization, or the early years of the 1900s, schooling was kind of for the white only, but it's also changed throughout the years. Once segregation started happening, a lot of different ethnicities wanted to get their education. They wanted to get that higher paying job, and they wanted to see different things happen with their life. They couldn't just sit at home or sit on the streets. They wanted to change themselves. And once the schools started seeing the different races come in and they were denying them over and over and over again, that's when the HBCUs started to come out in our world. With the first one being, excuse me if I'm wrong, Chenet University of Pennsylvania. That was the first ever HBCU created in, I want to say it was created in 1907. I could be wrong. But Chenet University of Pennsylvania. I don't think it's a school anymore, but now across the United States, there's 107 HBCUs in the states. With that, I mean, most of them are in the southern region. Most of them are on the east side of the world, or east side of the states, and it was giving ample opportunities for other ethnicities to kind of see the difference in schooling. It's for them to get help, for them to get their education that they need and that they wanted to get those higher up jobs. And I mean, some of them are pretty prestigious schools. They have some of the best professors in the world. They have some of the best students in the world, and they're on the uprise. They don't have a difference between Arkansas State and Florida A&M. There's no difference in our schools. Maybe the location.
Yeah.
You get the same education. You're going to get the same degrees, the same programs. Like, everything's the same. What's the difference? Ethnicity. Like, there's no change in the education now, but I mean, back in the day there used to be, and that's kind of what the uprise of the HBCUs and all the other schools that are wanting to help out the unprivileged or the not certainty of your background's not white, like we don't want to take care of you, not like. The last slide. Throughout college sports, as the years trend on, since the mid 50s to now in 2023, the difference in college sports is it's completely opposite from the professional sports. At the Division I level, 44.7% of African Americans are playing Division I football, while it's 38.6%. For basketball, it's 52.4% is African American, while white is only 24.3%. And I mean, that's kind of a big change, a big jump from the NBA, the NFL, I mean, it was a predominantly white sport in the 40s, the 30s, but now in the 2000s, we've made the change and the cultural difference of everybody gets an equal opportunity and everybody gets a shot to be professional. With the Division I baseball, 78.1 is white, but the remaining other is African American and other races that are following along through the ethnicities. And when it comes to that, a lot of these, I've experienced it firsthand, the Division I athletes in baseball. I mean, you're going to see teams that don't have other ethnicities, but at the same time, like, it comes down to a coach's discretion, a coach's feeling on recruiting and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I'm in the recruiting world now, being a coach, and we don't look at the color of their skin. We don't look at what their background is. Like, we look at, are you a baseball player or are you a reckless baseball player? Are you in the classroom? Are you a student, or are you just in the classroom so you can play baseball? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into recruiting. There's a lot of stuff that goes into getting each player out there. And I mean, I'm sure it's the same way for sports. I know for our staff, we care about mom, dad. We care about the brother, sister. We care about how clean your bedroom is, just because that shows who you are as a person. And I mean, it comes along with it. Most of the student athletes in America, 66.9% are white, while 13.1% are Hispanic, Latino, and 8.8% are African American, in which it's kind of surprising to see that the last percentage is as low as it is when most of the Division I sports throughout college are African American predominant. Like, it's dominant in certain sports, but that's such a low number compared to what the actual roster has on it. Just other thoughts about it. I mean, throughout the years, it's been a change, especially bringing many more ethnicities into the sport. I mean, we have a guy from the Netherlands on our team now, and bringing that culture into the locker room is something different. We had a pitcher's dinner, and the dinner, he brought a dish from the Netherlands, and like seeing the different food, seeing the different culture background, seeing the way they do stuff, it's completely different, but we're all the same. So that's it. My resources are on the last slide, but yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.